On a weekend where we honor and remember the military and honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice, NASCAR this weekend also had to deal with the tragedy of one of our own. Although Rowdy may be gone, he will never be forgotten. And how fitting that one of his proteges comes home victorious in NASCAR's longest race. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. First of all, happy Memorial Day to everybody out there on this Monday, and I hope everybody is spending time with their family and their friends while also honoring and remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice to fight and defend our country from evil. On this weekend, the Coca-Cola 600, one of the most prestigious races in all of NASCAR, one of NASCAR's longest race, actually, and is one of the top crown jewels in racing, where these guys race hard and aggressive on the mile-and-a-half track in America's home for racing at Charlotte Motor Speedway, where there's so much going on, a lot of strategy, a lot of adjustments with track conditions changing hour after hour, and a lot of mistakes that can go on the way there. But it's all about a race of survival and what is called basically a marathon race. And after last night, one driver emerged victorious in what was a very emotional win for an emotional weekend for the NASCAR community. Let's talk about how that happened yesterday in the longest race. Number one, Suarez with a crown jewel with help from above. Daniel Suarez and Spire Motorsports pull off an upset that no one saw coming last night by being able to win the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway thanks to a two-tire gamble from crew chief Ryan Sparks to give Suarez his third career win in the NASCAR Cup Series, besting out Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, and Kyle Larson for the victory. Who had Daniel Suarez winning the Coca-Cola 600? Because I certainly did not. After what he dealt with yesterday to get that victory, mighty impressive. So Daniel Suarez, as we all know, is competing in his first year with Spire Motorsports. After the last couple years, he'd been with Trackhouse Racing, but towards last year, Trackhouse and Suarez agreed to part ways after 2025, and he moved over to Spire Motorsports to team up with Carson Hocevar and Michael McDowell. And the first year so far for Suarez with Spire has been very impressive, running a lot better than I thought he would be doing for Spire. Even though we've seen Spire improve, I didn't know how Suarez would fare coming over to this race team, but you have seen him being a mature driver that he is and being able to gel properly with this race team. They've had some good runs this season, and yesterday, what they were able to accomplish was unbelievable. So he started the race in about the top 15 and hovered there for the most part of the race until early on in the first stage. He had to make a pit stop under green because he had a tire going down, I believe, so they had to bring the car down pit road. He fell a lap down, and it felt like it was going to be a long night for him to recover from that. But when a caution came out for an incident towards the end of stage number one, Suarez got the lucky dog and was able to get back in the lead lap. He was able to charge his way through the pack, and then we had a cycle of green flag pit stops in stage number two. He went a lap down again because he had an incident where he had to come back in for a loose wheel, and eventually he would go 2 laps down, but because of a couple cautions, he would get the wave around, get himself back 1 lap down, and then by the time we got into the final stage, actually, Suarez got back in the lead lap once again. And he was running around the top 15, top 20 when he got his lap back, but as the race was drawing closer and with weather moving into the area, Ryan Sparks, the crew chief, made an impressive gamble to get Daniel Suarez track position in anticipation that the rain could be coming and could be bringing an end to the race earlier than expected. So Suarez was able to take 2 tires and jump ahead of the guys that were dominating the competition last night in the form of the Toyotas from Joe Gibbs Racing and 2311 Racing's Tyler Reddick, plus the Hendrick Chevrolet of Kyle Larson. Suarez got himself up at the front of the field, and with only 2 brief restarts having to be dealt with weather, brief yellows, and all that, Suarez held back those Toyotas like you wouldn't imagine. On 2 tires? That is mighty impressive how he was able to hold back Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin, 2 former winners of the 600, and guys that were clearly the best of the field last night, being able to hold those guys up on 2 tires is absolutely impressive. And just as the rain started to fall on the track once again for the final caution of the night, and as it started to get heavier and heavier, NASCAR brought the cars down pit road. And then when the rain stopped, NASCAR said, given the amount of time that we have left in the night, we cannot get the track dry enough in time. They had to call the race. And Daniel Suarez is now a champion of the Coca-Cola 600. Technically, it was 560 miles run in the 600 miles, but still, that was an impressive gamble by Suarez and Ryan Sparks to get the track position they needed. Because it sounded like Suarez had a very good race car last night, but just having to overcome all the problems that he had early in the race with the loose wheel and flat tire, pit stops unexpectedly that put him behind the 8 ball, but being able to recover from that and being able to get that track position with the 2-tire gamble, that is mighty, mighty impressive. And you could just see the emotion in him hugging and high-fiving his Freeway Insurance crew once he was declared the winner. He was so happy that he was finally able to get a win with this racing. The second win for Spire Motorsports this year, of course, Carson Hocevar got them their first win of the season a few weeks ago at Talladega, and the third win in general for Spire Motorsports in the Cup Series. But you could just see the emotion because Daniel Suarez has been through so much in his career. He was a guy that came up through the ranks courtesy of Kyle Busch. He came up to the Truck Series to drive for KBM's truck team while also running full-time in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series in 2015 for Joe Gibbs Racing because Kyle Busch told Joe Gibbs, this guy could be something special. We got to give him a shot. And they gave him his big break. He was able to do well with KBM in the Truck Series for the limited schedules that he ran for them, including getting his first win with the team at Phoenix in the fall of 2016. And he also was able to deliver for Joe Gibbs Racing with the O'Reilly Series Championship in 2016, and then got to move up to the Cup Series after the sudden retirement of Carl Edwards. And while his Gibbs tenure in Cup didn't necessarily go so well, he was able to get another home with Stewart-Haas Racing where he was good, but he didn't make the playoffs, and it was ultimately a one-year deal for him because after that he went to Gaunt Brothers where he didn't really have the best year, plus missing the Daytona 500 did not go well for him. But then he was able to finally find a home in Trackhouse Racing for 5 years where he was able to get him their second win as an organization in 2022 at Sonoma, where it was his first career win and got to have that celebration of breaking apart a piñata shaped like a taco. That was pretty cool. And he was part of one of the best finishes in NASCAR Cup Series history, pretty much recreating the Cars movie finish at the beginning of the movie with a 3-wide photo finish coming to the checkered flag at Atlanta, beating out Ryan Blaney and, of course, Kyle Busch. But after 2024, things didn't go so well for Suarez in 2025, as I mentioned, to the point where they agreed to part ways. He jumped on board with Spire Motorsports, and a lot of people, including myself, thought it was going to be tough for him. But he has exceeded expectations that none of us expected him to do this season. He's currently the top 10 in the points, and he's been pretty good in a lot of the races we've been to. If he can keep this momentum up, he could have Spire Motorsports in the chase for the Cup this year alongside his teammate in Hocevar. And as I mentioned, he looked right to the sky, pointed to the sky, because he knew Kyle Busch was looking down on him. And I think Kyle had something to do with that to see Suarez get him the victory. And he dedicated it, said it's for Kyle, it's for Samantha, it's for Brexton, it's for Lennox, for the whole Busch family. How fitting. And Suarez is a really likable guy. He really is. He fights hard. He's done everything he can to stay in the sport in some top-tier equipment. And I think he's got another new home now, and I think it's going to be just fine for him. So congratulations once again to Daniel Suarez and Spire Motorsports, winners of the Coca-Cola 600. And I'd also like to point out, last weekend at Dover, Kyle Busch, in what turned out to be his last win in NASCAR, won in the 7 truck for Spire Motorsports, which took over KBM after KBM shut down after 2023. They took all their operations and their trucks. Suarez wins in the 7 car for this weekend. How fitting. Number 2, Mother Nature plays havoc. While we were able to run the races for all 3 series this weekend, they were all heavily impacted by weather. Obviously, with the gloomy days that we've dealt with the past couple of days, especially with what happened on Thursday, Mother Nature played havoc the entire weekend to the point where we tried to get the truck race in Friday night, but it didn't work out. We had to postpone it to Saturday morning, but there was mist in the air, so they said, we're going to move it back to 9 p.m. That didn't happen because we were running the O'Reilly race, and that was impacted with weather, fog, and all that, and only getting 37 laps of racing action under green while having multiple laps under yellow for incidents. A really messy situation. And then we had to run the truck race Sunday morning prior to the Cup Series and not letting it try to compete with the Indianapolis 500 that was going on with Fox. The Truck Series unfortunately only got 110 laps in because they had to race the clock at noon because there were other commitments going on. And of course, the Coca-Cola 600 itself, it looked like we were possibly going to get all 600 miles in, but when we got to about 60 laps to go, the weather started to move in, paused the race briefly, then we got back going, but then the next cell hit, and it was going to be really tough to drive the track to the point where NASCAR said, that's it. And I know so many people are frustrated with NASCAR's handling of the situation with weather. What could we do? Mother Nature was in the Concord, Charlotte area the entire weekend. We tried everything we could to give the fans the racing product. And again, we nearly got all 600 miles in of the 600, which I think was the best race out of all three for the weekend. Although the truck race was good, but with all the cautions and wrecking that was going on that race, there wasn't really a whole lot to try to control there. And Saturday, with as foggy as it was and muggy, there was going to be a real big challenge to get all 200 laps in for that race. And when Mother Nature plays havoc, what can you do? Sometimes it just doesn't work out in its favor. And I don't want Charlotte Motor Speedway to take a bad rap on this. They tried everything they could to get all three races in and try to complete all three races as best they possibly could. Some didn't fare well as others. I mean, again, all three races were cut short this weekend due to weather or other circumstances. But what are you going to do about it? NASCAR had to follow protocol as far as handling weather situations, and you want them to break the rules. Like, people think they have a rule book that they have to go by. And I know it sucks, but it's like following the law when it comes to, being part of the United States of America. We live in a free country, but sometimes you have to remember there are laws put in place that we have to obey. And NASCAR has rules and laws in their rule book that they have to go by. So I get fans are frustrated, but at the end of the day, Mother Nature just had a big impact in a negative way on the weather this weekend as far as dictating the outcome of every single race. Number 3, Toyota dominant, but didn't get it done. The Toyotas were absolutely on fire yesterday in the Coke 600. Everybody from Joe Gibbs Racing to the Tyler Reddick car at 2311 Racing, those guys were definitely on their A game last night and had really good battles up front all night long for the lead. Particularly the two guys that finished behind Daniel Suarez, Christopher Bell, runner-up, and Denny Hamlin with a third-place result. Those two guys were really strong. Talking about Christopher Bell, that guy had a lot of incidents that he had to deal with yesterday, coming from the back to the front, a lot of the time, because they had problems on pit road, where I think one of the penalties he had was equipment interference, which his crew chief was not happy about, saying we didn't do anything wrong, but at the end of the day, there wasn't really a whole lot you could do about that. But fortunately, the 20 car had a fast car that he was able to pick his way back up through the field. Then I think he had a speeding penalty that had to send him to the rear of the field, but once again came charging back up through the pack. And he was one of the last guys to pit in some of these green flag pit stop sequences that we had in stage 2 and 3. But when he got those fresher tires on, the last guy to pit, he still came ripping through the field, because you could see what fresher tires does compared to guys that have multiple laps on their tires pitting earlier before you do. He was able to use that to his advantage to catch guys in the end of stage 2 to get better positions and get more points. And then for the third stage, he was able to pit last, and as mentioned, claw his way back to the point where he was catching his Toyota teammates in Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, and Tyler Reddick and Ty Gibbs, because those guys were all battling each other and they're all racing in the middle of lap traffic. Bell was able to get by those guys, and he was able to get the stage win. It certainly seemed like it was going to be Christopher Bell's night to get his first win of the season, because he's still winless. But, of course, with the Suarez gamble to take 2 tires and beat out those guys on pit road and hold them off on those 2 brief restarts that we had, Bell just couldn't do a whole lot. At the end of the day, he had to settle for a runner-up. But it would have been cool if he was the winner, because he was also a guy that came up through the ranks of NASCAR courtesy of Kyle Busch. And of course, he got KBM a championship during the 2017 Truck Series season. So it would have been cool to see Bell win, but at the end of the day, he has to settle for a runner-up result. As for his teammate Denny Hamlin, who early on it looked like he had the field covered. He was so strong, particularly on those long green flag runs. Stage number 2, he was checking out on everybody, even after green flag pit stops. He has had immaculate speed yesterday in that number 11 car, and there wasn't a whole lot the rest of the competition at the time could do about it. But once I think the track started to cool down, the rest of the Toyotas were able to, I think, get equal with the 11 car. Plus, I watched some of those restarts yesterday live at the track. Denny Hamlin was relatively ragged on some of those restarts to where he lost a few spots, but then after a couple laps, he would pick his way back up through the field. But one of those late race restarts, there was a chance for him to try to get the lead from Suarez, but he got a little bit of an incident off of turn number 2, one of those laps, trying to chase down Suarez while also battling Christopher Bell because they're all going for the same piece of real estate. The 20 and the 11 did make some contact slightly down the backstretch when they doored each other, but it didn't hurt them both too much to carry on and have a shot to win. They tried everything they could, but they just couldn't get by the 7 car, and then the rains came, obviously. But that 11 car of Denny Hamlin, he was really fast yesterday, too. Unfortunately, both him and Bell fall short. Same for Tyler Reddick, who started on the pole based off of metrics, based with points, and your finish from the previous race at Watkins Glen result. Qualifying was rained out, so that put Reddick on the pole, and he led the most laps last night, over 100-plus laps, and he at times looked like he had the car to beat. He was pretty good on the shorter runs of a run. Then we get into some long runs. He would kind of fade a little bit, and you kind of saw that in stage number 3 where he was able to get the lead after green flag pit stops. But then when we got longer into that run, you could see he had used up his tires quite a bit and was beginning to fade to the point where he fell back to, I believe, 5th, while he saw those other Toyotas race up at the front of the field for the stage win. And Reddick tried everything he could to get to the front late in the going and have a shot to get the win, but it was just not meant to be. But a 4th place result, still really good, and it's his best finish at Charlotte on the oval configuration. So despite all the Toyotas having tremendous speed last night, none of them were able to seal the deal. Number 4, incredible action with a lot of chaos. The Coca-Cola 600, as you know, tends to have some relatively good racing moments and also see guys have some issues. I will say for the racing that we saw yesterday, this next-gen car, once again, ladies and gentlemen, has, I think, rekindled the spirit and the joy and the crown jewel that is the Coca-Cola 600, because the previous couple years prior to next-gen, we might have lost the spark and the pomp and circumstance that is the Coke 600 and being a prestigious race, because it had gotten to the point where some of the races were just flat out, according to fans, boring, not a lot of fun action. But the next-gen car since 2022, I think, has regained the joy and the admiration for this race. We had some great racing battles yesterday. Of course, yes, it was dominated a lot of the part by the Gibbs Toyotas and Tyler Reddick's 2311 car, but there were other guys that were mixing up, comers and goers. Heck, we saw Zane Smith lead the race for 31 laps, albeit with a different strategy call to get him up at the front, but there was good speed in that 38 car, and he finished 10th, by the way. Even saw Joey Logano started deep in the field, and for a guy that has had terrible luck the previous couple weeks, he was able to work his way through the pack and finish inside the top 10, a much-needed top 10 for the 22 team. A lot of other guys had back-and-forth nights going from the front to the back to work their way back to the front, like Suarez and Bell, for example. But there were so many comers and goers. And Shane Van Gisbergen, he did an incredible job yesterday, running up in the top 5 after starting there, and he pretty much stayed in the top 10 the entire night before finishing 11th at the very end of the race. And William Byron, the man who dominated last year's race, he was out to lunch in stage 2 and stage 3, and I felt there's no way this guy is going to be able to have any chance to get back up there. Well, he nearly did, because with some of the cautions that we had and wave rounds, he was able to get back on the lead lap and get himself back inside the top 10. I think if he had maybe gotten towards the top 5 on some of those pit stops, there was a chance he might have been able to get up there and race those Toyotas. But we'll never know. But there was some good racing action, but there was also a lot of chaotic moments yesterday. One of the first being a big wreck over in turn 2 where Austin Cindric, it looked like, got loose after maybe some assistance from Christopher Bell. He went around, came down the banking, and trying to avoid the wreck, Connor Zillich, the rookie, gets nailed in the right rear quarter panel as he's sliding down, trying to avoid the 2-car. Both of them suffered heavy damage. Then you had Chase Elliott, 11 laps left in the first stage, get loose off a 2 and spin to the inside wall, knocking him out of a race that's really been kind of rough to him the last couple of years. Stages 2 and 3 were relatively clean, aside from, stage 3, the one major incident being Catherine Lake, who attempted the double for the Indy 500 and Coke 600, wasn't able to finish both of them in the mileage that she'd hoped for because of an early wreck in the Indy 500, had to get all the way here, and running the 78 car for Cup was relatively off the pace most of the night, had a wheel come loose, but she still was able to finish the race. But then we get into the final stage of the race. That's where we had some chaotic moments where Ross Chastain, the defending winner of the race, was trying to complete the pass on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. off at turn 2. Stenhouse tried to lift to not run up on the back of the 1 car, but it just was too little too late. He tapped the 1, and the 1 got sent into the inside wall hard. Thankfully, he was okay, but it was a really rough hit. And then a couple laps later, Chase Briscoe had a ragged restart, fell back, trying to work his way back up there, attempting to make a 3-wide pass to the inside down the backstretch. Late second, the closing rate, he taps the back of the number 17 car, sending him around and collecting Chris Buescher. And unfortunately, Briscoe was part of it. And Josh Berry also got a part of it too. Some really tough hits for some of the key names that were caught up in some incidents last night. There was a lot of good racing, don't get me wrong, some good racing action, but there was a lot of incidents that took out some guys that possibly could have had a chance to contend for the win. And number 5, remembering Rowdy. As we all know, Thursday was a tough day for NASCAR with the tragic passing of Kyle Busch. But I want to say, Charlotte Motor Speedway yesterday and being at the track live, the tribute that they gave to Kyle was remarkable. I give massive props to the CEO, the new CEO of NASCAR, Steve O'Donnell, handling that with strength, courage, and being the professional that he is. It was a lot of people gathered around a symbol where it was the number 8 in the front stretch infield with Kyle's signature right there. A lot of people gathered around. Samantha Braxton and Lennox Bush were there for that moment, and you could just see Samantha. She was just absolutely just wretched, the fact that she doesn't have Kyle. And I want to give props to Braxton. That 11-year-old boy, he was a man yesterday, being able to console his mom and just trying to be strong in the tough moment that it was. And I know for a fact, that young man, if he does pursue a career, even though that may not mean much in this, he's a man now, and I give him a lot of props being able to handle that yesterday as much as he did. Richard Childress was also gathered there, the families of the Busch family, and of course, Kyle's brother, Kurt Busch, was there, and he placed 8 flowers on that logo of the number 8 in honor of his brother. And those 8 flowers remained there for the entire race. They didn't move a single bit with all the cars flashing by at high speeds or coming off of pit road, or the rains that came through. Those 8 flowers remained there the entire race. And the whole community, we all are still mourning the loss of Kyle Busch. And it's still going to take time for us to get through this. But once again, Kyle would want us to continue on through this. He'd want us to keep on racing because it's what he did. He loved to race, and he'd want us to continue in honor of him. And that we will do for Rowdy Busch. Kyle, we love you. We miss you. Thank you for everything that you've did. Rest in peace, Rowdy. And I just want to, again, give a quick shout out to all the men and women of our military that have served our country. To those currently serving, thank you. We are forever indebted. Those that we lost, making the ultimate sacrifice. You may be gone, but the impact that you've left on our country, fighting for it, will never be forgotten. Freedom is never given. It is earned. So, with that, we must continue on, ladies and gentlemen, and with that we will continue to race the rest of this season, and we will do that next weekend at Nashville Superspeedway, the 1+ mile concrete track that provides relatively interesting racing. These guys slipping and sliding in the corners where it could be ragged at times. They're going to have to hold their own next weekend if they're going to be able to come across victorious and capture one of the top trophies, I believe, in the sport, in that incredible electric guitar. So who's going to come out top in the City of Music next week? We shall find out. Could it be Ryan Blaney who got the win last year? Or could it be a Kyle Larson, a Christopher Bell that has still yet to see victory lane in 2026? We got to tune in next week to find out. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your Memorial Day. Subscribe, like, and congratulations once again to Daniel Suarez and Inspire Motorsports, champions of the Coca-Cola 600. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing for Rowdy.